Hello and welcome to our series on the birth of Islam. And in the former lessons, as you well recall, we have discussed several issues, such as the time of the Prophet Muhammad, the creation of Islam during his time. We spoke about the dhimmi, the protected people who are the members of the monotheistic religions who are protected by Islam as long as they subjugate to the rule of the Muslims, and many other topics. I would like now to continue with the brief discussion of the history of Islam immediately after the death of the Prophet Muhammad in the year 632. Immediately after the death of Muhammad begins a period of about 2 decades or so, around that, 3 decades perhaps, starting in 632 and ending in 661, in which the world of the Muslims is controlled by those who replace the Prophet. They're not really a dynasty, because they are not father and a son, so I'm reluctant to call that a dynasty, but they are the successors of the Prophet. None of them are prophets, of course, because in Islam, Muhammad is the last prophet. Islam, as you remember, recognized the truth in the prophecies of the Jewish and Christian prophecies, but Islam considers Muhammad to be the last prophet. So basically there is no possibility for a creation of a new religion once Islam was formulated, because God will never send another prophet, according to the Islamic way of thinking. So immediately after the death of Muhammad, there are those who replace him. Their name or their title is Khalifa in Arabic. Khalifa, by the way, it's the same root as in Hebrew. Khalif, to replace, is one who replaces the Prophet. And there were 4 of them, and they are considered by most Muslims to be righteous people, firm believers in the message of the Prophet, good Muslims, unlike those who would come after them, the Umayyads, which constitute a new dynasty. The 4 first caliphs or khalifas were considered to be pious ones. Hence, they are named, or they're titled, Khulafa ar-Rashidun. Al-Khulafa ar-Rashidun means the caliphs that are righteous, or the just caliphs. So the Khulafa Rashidun are all related to the Prophet in some way. They have a family connection with the Prophet, or they were simply members of the elite that followed the Prophet since the beginning, or almost at the beginning. And the first of them is Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr, who rules from 632 to 634, is the first caliph of the Khulafa ar-Rashidun. And his link with the Prophet is in the fact that he is the father of Aisha. Aisha was the young woman of the Prophet Muhammad. He married her at the age of 6. And of course, in the past, things were possible. Today, it shocks us to realize that. So he marries her at the age of 6, and her father, Abu Bakr, is chosen by the followers of Muhammad to lead the community, to lead the early Muslim nation in the following years. Now, he didn't live for long, because he dies in 634, yet he is the founder of Islam after the time of the Prophet. Immediately after, he had to face a mutiny amongst the tribes in the Arabian Peninsula. I'd like to take you back to the time of the Prophet. Within the last years of the Prophet, he managed to basically conquer the entire Arabian Peninsula and forced the tribes who were all Jahilis, ignorant, as the Muslims call them, because they didn't know the real God, Allah. He forces them, these pagans, to become Muslims. But that conversion was sometimes not a real conversion. People were forced to do so. So basically, they believe that once Muhammad is gone, they will be able to get back to their original habits and beliefs in the many gods, as their forefathers did. So immediately after the death of Muhammad, many of these tribes find the opportunity to basically rebel against the authority of Abu Bakr. And therefore, a series of battles ensue in which Abu Bakr has to reinforce Islam, to force it on the pagans in the Arabian Peninsula. It is known in the history of Islam as the Ridda Wars, or the Apostasy Wars, in which he fights against the apostates, against those who are non-believers. And he is extremely successful. He manages to bring order back to the Arabian Peninsula. And once this is done, and it's done in a relatively short period of time, once the Arabs realize that he's a serious ruler, he's not to be tampered with, they surrender. Once he has done that, Abu Bakr decides to force his way out of the Arabian Peninsula.
What was the reason for doing so? Why would the early Muslims turn their look to the outer world, which was, by the way, as you all recall, controlled by two major empires at the time: the Sassanid Persian pagan empire in the east and the Byzantine Christian empire in the north? That's the Romans who converted to Christianity. Why would he think that he needs to conquer these empires? Where that ambition comes from? Well, it probably derives from two issues or two motivations. One of them, perhaps, would be the fact that ideologically, Islam sees itself as the true belief, just like Christianity, and its goal is to force itself on the non-believers to save their souls. So the general attitude of Islam towards non-Muslims is to conquer and force the real belief in the true God, in doing so saving their souls. That's the theological political ideology. But there's also another reason for that. Before the rise of Islam, there were wars in between the different tribes in the Arabian Peninsula. Different tribes fought each other, basically fighting over the main basic assets of life, food, water. And remember, we're in the desert. It's a huge desert area. So these wars were part of the way of life at the time. But now that the entire Arabian Peninsula is now controlled by Muslims and all its inhabitants are Muslims, except for the Jews or Christians who are not forced to be Muslims, a problem appears. And the problem is that according to the Muslim law, Muslims should not fight against each other. So we have now kind of a Muslim nation in the Arabian Peninsula. They all belong to one big family in a way, theologically speaking. They are not allowed to fight each other. Yet there's not enough water, not enough food for all, and therefore they turn their efforts outside to the realm of the Byzantine and Sassanid empires. So the time of Abu Bakr, 632 to 634, just in 2 years, is the time in which he solidifies the control of Islam in the Arabian Peninsula, turning it into the base of the power that eventually will erupt from the Arabian Peninsula outside to try to conquer the then known world.